Well, I'll tell y'all, finally uploaded the last two videos where I was kind of carving out the heads on these little cattle here. Decide that might be a good time to go ahead, get a little more carving done, kind of get a little more work done into their bodies, I say, and kind of work along this little ways that we kind of do certain things just to kind of make the way we shave it along, and then kind of work our way into it. And I say put a little bit more into the work, make it so we come up with the very thing we're supposed to. I did kind of get along the tail there already, but there's kind of little ways we take it as we go a little further. There's a certain knife I'd probably be needing the most, but apparently it's been mislaid around here somewhere and can't find it. And I say that this is just among the things where I guess when it comes to something like this, you come up with an Angus cow. And for this little bit of work I put in here, comes along to make it so we shall see how this is just the work that we need to make it more cattle-like. You see, I kinda got along here just fine. Sometimes you gotta kinda shave to the sides a little bit and make it so it's going to come out a little bit better for a little work we have where we put a little bit around the area, and it almost could look like a round piece of cattle in the work, in the making, and then kind of come down to where we got the little place in it where we kind of work along, see what we do, and then kind of make it so we're going to make the rest of the cow come out as good as it may, and put a little extra effort and roundness into it. They always say that fatter cows make the better beef. That's always what I've heard all the time, and how they kind of make the meat that way. I've always just heard the stories about how that they kill the cows for burgers. He was asking my father that as a kid, how they would do it. He said they usually shoot it through the brain. And come to think of it, that's just one of those things where we see in the different faiths, different ways they do it, like the way that even in Judaism, for example, they make the meat so it's kosher. I heard about the days how in their world, you know, they split the throat of the cow or the animal or whatever, the lamb or the sheep or the goat, and sort of, you know, like they do that little thing where they slit its throat and hang it upside down just to kind of get all the blood out of it, because, you know, there's verses in the Old Testament that say, do not eat meat with the blood still in it, and there's certain commands people follow through the ages. I say, as far as we got this little guy rounded out, there's a little place where we're going to go up to his top and kind of put the extra work into his body and make it so he's going to be a good little cow, to kind of make it so we're seeing just what he's coming out in good timing and tidings to be. And so this is just one of those little works we have where, you know, we kind of put the extra faith into what we have and work with and do. And say that these may not be taking too long to carve. Didn't think I was going to try to put any legs on these or carve any of that into them. Do think for this little moment, this little place where the tail ends, decided to put a little slit mark right there, and for this part of the carving, make the little tail of the cow and put in the work to kind of make it so this calf, this cow or whatever, gets its little work done into him. So we see how this shall come and go, making it so we're kind of working away around to this. Oh, and I say, this is just one thing where we sort of put the little place in. Think there's some little saw marks at the top. We kind of gotta get rid of those. Kind of gotta take it so we see how cattle are making a way around the fence. And I tell you, when we were kids, sometimes we'd visit farms and there'd be little cattle around there. We'd like to chase them around sometimes, and you know, we were always told not to do it though, because you know, it could end up being a thing where you'd end up having to replace an expensive cow. Because I tell you, I've always heard about how when you chase them too much, you might kind of run them into each other or run them into the fence and probably cause them to be injured, and then you'd have to replace them because, you know, the farmer kind of needs them for his beef products and his dairy products and things like that. So that's kind of where we kind of have to be the best of cautious we can be, I say. And that's because cattle have little ways, you know, and I've learned from times in my life when I've been at the ballpark and little farms come around to visit us for the guests, and they would always show how they had all these goats and chickens and stuff, and that was the first place where I learned that dairy cows are kept separate from meat cows. And you know, but the reason I learned that was because they had goats there, and they talked about how that dairy goats were also kept separate from meat goats. And just like they do with cows, I probably hadn't heard at first that they did that with either one, but it was just a cool little thing to find out, to learn. I think I've kind of gone about as far as I will on this little buddy. I think I'll kind of get him a little bit worked in what he does and how he goes, and oh, how this is just one of those things where we're getting the work along to it too. Like to tell you all a little story about time I was on a farm as a kid and came face to face with a cow once. I could tell it was a cow just because it had an udder underneath, and I started kind of walking towards it and it was there, but when I started to run towards it, it turned around and ran the other way. And there's also this other little story I could tell you about a time when there was one over there. It didn't have any horns, but I could tell by what was hanging from its underside that it was a bull, so started to run towards it, and it started to take a step or two towards me, so just knew that was kind of the thing where you learn a little difference between cows and bulls there, as far as just what they'll do and what'll happen. Cows and bulls. Well, say we come along far enough on this guy. I do think I enjoyed kind of doing this video here. I think there's probably little places or two we might kind of get along, work along a little bit, but who knows, we could probably end up putting some dowels underneath to make the legs or something. Never know how this is going to end, but I just think this is kind of like a little interesting matter I've got here. I'd say that maybe one day we'll come up with a way to probably put some legs on these guys, but I'd say yes, for now it's probably time to get a little bit close to an ending. First of all, I want to thank those of you who come on here to watch. Appreciate your time to come on here and see a video, see how I carve. Sometimes I do a sewing video, like it that you all come on to see those. I would like it if some of you all, if you get the chance and if it so interests you, you would subscribe to the channel, kind of share some of these videos with your friends, let them kind of see what's on here and what they might like, what they might be interested in learning from this, and how it might be of interest to them to kind of watch and learn, kind of get a little updated as to how things are going and with the wood and all the other things I've worked with. And would like to say that things have been good over here. I hope to kind of get a little bit more made over time and get a little more video, get a little more subscribers, get a little more help to this page, and maybe have a few more to watch over time, and maybe one day probably kind of get a little further out there so that many of y'all can see the ways I work and the things I do and the things I make. So I'm just happy to have you all come on here, and do want to say that I do appreciate the fact that, I have the subscribers I have. Thank you all for coming on here, for watching. I hope you all always pay attention in life to the good things that motivate you, the things that make you happy, and take care, and I'll see you in the next video.